And just like that, we are live on the internet.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for getting up at this early hour in Texas.
Absolutely. I'm
So
always up early.
Are you?
Yeah.
I am sorry to hear that. Is that by choice or because you have to?
Get up and get kids to school and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, kids seem to get up very early. That's the thing.
Yes, they do.
How old are your children?
So I have a 14-year-old stepdaughter that lives with us. I have an 18-year-old stepson who's out of the house. And then I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old.
That's awesome.
And then I have Gavin, who would be 4.
Who would be 4.
Yeah.
And let's talk about Gavin, because that's how we've probably connected. We're just saying, I don't know how we found each other, which is kind of amazing. Usually there's some connection or, we've something with social media, but
yeah.
I'll be really honest. I don't know how I found you.
Well, I think it was because of the pool safety stuff on Instagram. And I was so I was, I've advocated for people in the community to put up a pool fence. And I believe through that is how we connected.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we did, because the combination of your story and the work you're doing and your career in nursing is interesting. And, I think it's really important for the people who have a story like yours to tell, who are who are able to do so,
need to
have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah,
and I have far more friends than I would like who have lost children to drowning, and anytime they're willing to tell people about it, I think the impact of that is so strong that I want to make sure that everyone who wants to has the venue to do that in the most impactful way possible. And especially with someone like you, who it happened so recently. It was just the year before last, right? 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been 2 years.
On New Year's Day?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you mind saying what happened?
Yeah, so the story is I was at work. It was on New Year's Day. I was working the holidays for my staff. So my ex-husband had the children for the day. They had a wonderful day for Texas for the winter. Typically, it's pretty cold around that time of year. And that day it was bright and sunny and beautiful. They ended up going to their grandparents' house who had a swimming pool, and they did not have a fence around that pool. So the kids had been playing outside, and my boys were left outside by themselves. It was a really, I wasn't there, so I feel like I partially can't speak to what happened that day, but from everything that I've, gathered and, talked with my other kids about and everything like that, it was just, I've learned so many other stories where the similar circumstance happens where adults think that the other ones are watching. And so the boys were left playing outside, and by accident, Gavin fell into the swimming pool. At the time, my son Ethan was 4, and Ethan probably watched Gavin in the pool just in shock and scared. I believe that he probably felt like he was in trouble. And by the time he went and told his grandpa that Gavin was in the pool, I don't know the amount of time that he was in the water, but by the time Grandpa went and got him out of the pool and they started CPR, he was probably already gone. So the paramedics came to the house. They transported Gavin to the hospital that's local. In the midst of that, I got the phone call, and I left work and I went obviously to the hospital. And they worked on him for a long time. They did get his cardiac back, his heart back, and we transported him to Children's in Dallas. where they tried to stabilize him even further. But after about 30 hours of efforts, he was gone. So we let him off life support the following day. Yeah, that's his story.
Thank you. And it never gets easier to hear those ever. And I'm sorry, obviously. So, in the 2 years since the drowning, have you connected with the kind of water safety community? Have you talked to the folks over at Families United to Prevent Drowning? Those are the other families who have had a drowning.
Yeah, so I really actually got connected with all these groups through my friend, Misty Vento. So she lost her, do you know her by chance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Misty lost her son, Xander, who was 4 years old at the time. And she's done a lot of drowning prevention awareness through Cook's Children's. And so we had a mutual friend who connected us when Gavin died. And she really was an angel in my life. She really, she was the one who connected me with these communities. She was the one who made me feel like I wasn't crazy, just the aftermath of everything. And she really guided me. So she and I attended the National Drowning Prevention Conference in April of 2018 in Florida. Mm-hmm. And that was when I met Joe Bird with the Miss Tristan Foundation and all the IPSA people, and just made a lot of these connections for water safety. And when I attended that conference, really I feel like I was going to see what was being done and what was out there, because, when this happens to your child, you just become angry and you want to change the world and all these things. And I was so thankful to learn like how much is being done when it comes to water safety. So
yeah, I kind of feel bad every time someone starts a new water safety nonprofit and their intentions are so good and they're so passionate, but they're always like, I'm going to do this, because someone has to, so this never happens again. Yeah. And I'm like, yep, you and everyone else. Like that's because, and to their credit, I get it, because it feels like such an easy problem to fix, right? Wow. Like if we tell people about laser protection and they get the fences and get swimming lessons, like it feels like, there's no reason it should be the number one cause of accidental deaths for kids between 1 and 4. But then you quickly figure out that it's a lot harder than it looks, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And that's why I really think that the Lord brought me to that conference to give me peace about what is being done so that I can focus on some other things. So I agree with you. And why reinvent the wheel? I feel like we as advocates should support one another's efforts, that are already being done. So
yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think you're right. The less overlap that everybody can do, the less reinventing of the wheel, I think the much more productive the group can be, if that makes sense.
Agree. Mm-hmm.
So what have you decided yet what you do want to focus on, if anything, what your plan is? I mean, it's still new, obviously. So
yeah, it is still new. And so really this last year, so after I went to that conference, I was working for Methodist Mansfield. I've worked for Methodist Health System as a registered nurse since 2010. But at this time I was working at the Mansfield location, and they were extremely supportive of my advocacy for drowning prevention. They are a huge footprint in the community where I live. So we created a brochure that has been able to be passed out for water safety and things like that, and just kind of incorporating that aspect into the hospital system. We're not a pediatric hospital, so the Mansfield location is has good connection with Cook's Children's in Fort Worth. So anyway, at that time, that's what I was doing. So since then, the things that I went through with Gavin really caused a lot of just honestly PTSD in me after just the things that I went through as a nurse, but also having to be a mom. And it just really, it really just changed me, you know, from the inside. So right now I am back in the emergency department, and that was a really big step for me to go back to that. Just trying to get my skills back in trauma and taking care of critical patients, because that's what I had always done before. And so I'm building back those skills. And as I do that, there's a lot that I'm seeing where I'm like, okay, this needs to be done. This needs to be done. So right now I'm just really, I'm really in a phase of relearning and rebuilding myself so that I can be the best me to help others. I did start a blog, and on my blog, I wrote out my story. I've shared a lot of the things that I've done to help myself recover from this tragedy. And my goal eventually is to hopefully be like an advocate or a counselor type person for people who've been through loss. So however I end up getting there, I don't know the steps, but that's what I envision. So
I like that a lot. And, you know, a lot of people who have suffered loss, just kind of because of the nature of this community, watch this right now. And I always like when other people who have had a similar experience kind of share what they've done to process and recover, because I know that people who have been in a similar situation are watching. I talked to a mom a few weeks ago who had one of the most beautiful metaphors that I'd ever heard, where she said she figured out that each happy moment after her son drowned was like a pearl of joy. And her idea was to just live for those pearls, whether it was, a happy dinner with her other kids, or, a good shower, or whatever, these little pearls of joy. And that over time, as she collected them, she was able to create this string of pearls. Yeah. And in between the pearls are grief and suffering, and, the knots in between are tough and hard to get through. But she knew if she held on long enough, she'd get to another pearl. And over the 15 years or so since her child had drowned, she now had a long pearl that she was proud of, that she could hold on to, or a long necklace, that she could, kind of lean back on. But I thought that was amazing. And
I mean, that is perfect.
Yeah. And
true. I mean, that's the truth, for sure.
And I knew that helped me. I mean, my parents both passed away, and I was like, man, anybody watching that was going to get something out of it, Yeah. So you said you've been blogging on your recovery and what you've been doing. What in particular do you think has helped you? So
I've really gone through a roller coaster of things. So when Gavin first died, I was going through a divorce, and I had already been in counseling. So I did counseling for a while, and I feel like that helped process those initial extreme shock stages. Mm-hmm. But after a while, one-on-one counseling gets redundant, I would say. Okay. You have to find a way to move forward from these acute conversations, I guess. So I ended up, anyway, long story short, several wonderful people came into my life. I had the most amazing friends walk me through that first year. And my very best friend, who I'm now married to, introduced me to Celebrate Recovery. And Celebrate Recovery has been where I faced everything. So through that, I not only processed who I was before this tragedy, but who I am now, because it changes you. And losing a child it's just a different. Prior to Gavin, I had lost 5 other family members in 4 years. So our family almost went through just like an annihilation of us, and so we had to process through a lot. But I would I would say that being able to cope and process with Celebrate Recovery was how I overcame the loss of my child. So
I'm not familiar with Celebrate Recovery. Can you explain kind of?
I can, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so Celebrate Recovery is it's a Christian 12-step program.
Mm-hmm.
So we say there that anybody with a hurt, habit, or hang up, you have people there, that have tried AA, NA, things like that in order to recover. And without incorporating Christ into their recovery, they fail. And they end up coming to CR, and you see lives transformed. So, it's not just for if you have an addiction. I've, been in there with people with eating disorders, people suffering from loss and grief, people coping through, death, or people coping with a divorce, all kinds of things. So it's just a whole entire group of people who are all broken. We all have an issue. We all cope with our issues, sometimes in not the most healthy ways. And so this program really teaches you how to cope effectively. And I'll be honest, prior to going to that, I drank a lot in 2017, a lot. And even though I was holding on to Christ, I was still trying to cope with things my own way. So it wasn't until in 2018 when I really laid down a lot of those bad coping habits and faced everything was when I got better, So, and then in addition to the 12-step program, you have a support group, you can have a sponsor where these people are watching out for you and helping guide you through your recovery. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. And I'm really glad that you found that, obviously.
It's all over the country. So it's a nationwide program, and our church is looking and planting one in another country. So it's pretty awesome.
That's cool. What country?
Peru. I just found that out last night. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Do you know why Peru, out of curiosity?
Church connections.
Okay. Yeah. So you already had some kind of foothold there and decided just a good leaping off point.
That's what the pastor said last night. So we'll see.
I like it.
Yeah.
So how long were you a nurse for, or have you been a nurse for?
So I've been a nurse I've been in healthcare since 2009. I graduated nursing school in 2011. And
okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And your title was interesting because I'm not familiar with holistic nursing. What is the difference?
Yeah, so holistic nursing is something that's on the rise. When I graduated nursing school, I was so young. So I got pregnant when I was 18 years old. I had my daughter at 19, and I had always planned on going to nursing school, but when you're that young, you have to find a way to provide for this child. So by the grace of God, I got into school, but it wasn't what I had expected. And, I was really disappointed. I will say this, I was very disappointed in just how dependent the medical industry is on pharmaceuticals, and how we medicate everybody for everything. And that's not my personal perspective. So after I graduated nursing school, I attended the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and I graduated from that in 2012. And so that taught me more of a holistic side of like eating and approaching people with, diet and wellness rather than just medications. Now, as a nurse, I can't always preach and practice that. I've used that a lot in my own personal life. But hopefully I feel like the future of medicine is really going toward more holistic care. You got naturopathic doctors these days. You have, there's a lot of physicians who have left their practices to do alternative medicine. So the industry is changing, whether people want it to or not, it is. So
yeah, my first instinct when I read that was that holistic nursing reminds me of the alternative to being an MD, which is, now that word's blanking on me. I know there's two types of physicians. You can be an MD or a
DO.
DO. Thank you very much. Is that similar? Is a DO similar to the type of?
Yeah, I would say so, because a DO, they're this is a this is a hard topic to say, but they are looking at a more whole person perspective.
Sure.
And that's what holistic nursing is. It's, where you're not only assessing the person for their, infection in their leg, you're asking them, how are you spiritually? How are you emotionally? And all of these things affect your health, so it's looking at the whole person.
That's awesome. And so you said that the work you do in a hospital, right? Mm-hmm. Is mostly like critical care?
It is for the time, yeah. So I'm med-surg certified. I've worked in med-surg. I've done mother baby, where I was on postpartum, and then I went into emergency medicine. So the emergency room is my heart, because I love the fast pace. If I got to be at work for 12 hours and I want to be busy and on my feet and, all that. So, but the holistic side of care, you're limited as a registered nurse. You cannot sit and see a patient and tell them what to do, because they're under the care of the physician. So I am in school for my master's. I'm still kind of at a crossroads as to what I want to get that in for my nursing degree, because I want to be able to do that with people, but I'm just still researching what that looks like. So.
Well, I'll be excited to see how it fleshes out.
Me too.
Yeah. Now, before we got started, we talked about your very bright outfit, and you said you were cycling.
Yeah.
And I think you said you were training for an event. Is that right?
Yeah. So I am. I'm going to claim it. Since Gavin died, I picked back up my bike. I cycled when I was in high school, and in and out of my kids being little. But after he died, I needed a healthy outlet, and I had bought my bike when he was about a year old. So I picked it back up and started cycling again. And this year, my goal is to do the Hotter Than Hell, which is a 100-mile ride in Texas in the summer heat. And it falls on his birthday. So that's my plan.
That's amazing. When is that?
August 25th.
That's fantastic. And how is your preparation going so far?
Oh, it's going. It's going.
When you were at the NDPA conference, did you meet Melissa Sutton?
I did, yes. I sat in her water babies class, the Water Smart Babies.
Do you know that she is also a very serious cyclist?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, she was, I believe, and I might get this wrong, I believe she made an attempt to be in the Olympics. I think she did the Olympic trials.
Oh, wow. And I'm not there at all.
And she does a lot of marathons and triathlons, and she cycles very well, apparently. Yeah. And she's an awesome human being in general. But we connected. She was really, really nice. Well, cycling, running, all of that. It's very, it's just mentally stabilizing. I mean, I feel like it really has helped me keep going. So I have to do it, I know. I feel the same way, mostly about running. So next time you talk to Melissa, talk to her about cycling, because I'm sure she is eager to talk to other people about it who aren't sick of hearing her talk about it. Yeah. I need that. I need people like that. So thank you. There's a book I finished recently by David Gavins called Can't Hurt Me. And he is a former Navy SEAL who had a really rough childhood, but he got into ultra marathons, 100+ mile marathons. in different, severe heat situations, and just, or, in, snow, or he's a crazy person. Extreme, extreme ultra marathons. And, he talks a lot about how he does it not for the physical performance so much, but because he's looking for ways to callous his mind. He thinks that the extreme physical competition and what you put yourself through physically calluses your mind so that your mind is capable of enduring bad things that happen to you. And I thought that was such a neat way of looking at it, because usually people see folks putting themselves through physical hardship, and you think they're training their body. And he said, no, what you're really doing is you're training your mind, and your body's just the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I believe that you have to do something that you love. You can't, for me, like going into CrossFit or weightlifting or something like that, I would be miserable because I don't enjoy that. But cycling, that's an old pastime for me. I mean, you ride a bike as a kid, but I always loved riding my bike, and getting into cycling more. I mean, it's a love, it's a passion. Like, I crave it, and I think if you're doing something that you enjoy, then that's what's going to help you, not something you're miserable doing all the time. But physical activity is top 5 things that you have to do to stay mentally fit and sane, especially in grief and recovery, for sure.
I think it's great. I would definitely recommend the book or the audiobook if you want something to listen to while you're cycling.
Thank you.
Do you normally listen? I always like asking this question. When you're cycling or running, what do you listen to?
I don't always listen to music. A lot of times I just keep it quiet. That way I can think and pray. And I'll put the music on in my little saddlebag, but I can't really hear it all the time. So honestly, being in nature is better than just blasting all the time. So
I agree. I believe I've heard him say, the same guy, that music is cheating because you're not going to have music when you're in a bad situation. So you got to do it on your own,
Yes. Yeah.
So what have you been doing in Texas, around Dallas, to prevent less drownings from happening in the future? Because as we all know, Texas is a high drowning state. And, I think I mentioned to you before we started that I've been talking about Texas for 20 years because you guys have some of the highest drowning numbers in the country and 0 laws regarding it. No legislation, preventing drowning prevention legislation. So I know you've been doing some work there, and I was curious to hear about it.
Well, so the reason why I even began to look at any of that, when Gavin died, our family got a beautiful letter from our House Rep, John Ray, Representative Ray. And it was like a memoir of his life, and whether that was part of the obituary or what, but it just really made an impact on me. He hand signed that, and it was so generous and so thoughtful. So I ended up reaching out to his office after I kind of got out of the first 6-month fog. And I told his office, I said, we need to do something about this, and so they were very encouraging. And this was in 2017. So they said, session will be coming up, we'll put your name on the list, and we'll look at, what we can do for drowning prevention. So, it was quiet, in 2018, and fast forward, we ended up coming up to where session was happening. So his office and I touched back base, and as they were preparing for what they were going to be working on, the Texas Drowning Prevention Alliance is another big group. And so between them and Representative Ray, I kind of connected the two. And so now it's pretty amazing. May 7th through 14th, Representative Ray is putting, they are doing a proclamation of Families United to Prevent Drowning Week. And I may not be saying that the right way, but on May 7th, they are doing an official inauguration of that week. And we are going to be at the Capitol. So they're inviting like all families to come, that whether they support drowning prevention or they want to share their story. There's going to be a large group at the Capitol that day on May 7th. And the prayer is that the governor will also recognize that week. So it's really amazing how that's fallen together. And it was just really connecting people, and that's how these things get done, I guess.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
It is cool.
That's fantastic. And what would you like to see happen in Texas to prevent drownings?
So I've been a very big advocate. Obviously, I feel that if the pool that Gavin drowned in would have had protection, even by the accident of children not being supervised, that could have prevented him from falling into it. So I've been a very big advocate for pool safety as far as fencing and things like that. I was really blessed to be able to visit California and Florida and Arizona, where in all of these states, there's rules and there's laws and there's regulations for residential pools. And Texas does have legislation that speaks to city limits, but the problem is that in Texas, most of these homes are built outside of city limits. So, you're talking in the county, there's, door-to-door neighborhoods with backyard swimming pools that don't have to meet those requirements. And so ideally, it would be great if we had legislation that protected just residential swimming pools. I think that that's huge. I think if these other states can do that, why can Texas not? I mean, we're the best state in the country. So, we need that. I mean, that's huge.
Texas should have the biggest pool safety law, right?
Yeah, we should. And everybody and their mom has a pool. I mean, it's hot, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that that's, sometimes the negative thing of pool safety advocates is people think that we're against their backyard oasis. And that's not the case. It's that you have to have a responsibility with that. People are building these beautiful $400,000, $500,000 homes with, beautiful, gorgeous backyards, but that comes with a responsibility, and whether, you like it or lump it, that's the truth. So.
Yeah. I say all the time that you wouldn't leave a gun out in the street or on your kitchen counter. You wouldn't, drive, just set your car driving down the street without anyone driving it. It's a public health issue to have your pool in a backyard unprotected. And for me, the pool looks weird without a fence around it. It looks wrong. Like there's something missing. It looks naked,
Because you're aware though. And I think that's the thing. A lot of people in our community weren't even aware of the need of a fence. And, is it unfortunate that my son's death had to bring this awareness? Yeah. It sucks. It's a very heavy burden to bear, but the amount of people who have, implemented that and put in safety precautions and their children have been saved because of that. I mean, that's huge, and I just want that to grow and continue on. And so, what's such a blessing is as I am getting out and cycling and I'm going on 30, 40 mile rides, I'm looking around the community and I see a lot more pools with fences than were there before. So I know that there's an impact being made and I know that it's happening. It's just, it would be great if it was at a state, level for sure.
One of the things about what we do, and it's going to be the same for you, is there's no way to know how many children would have drowned but didn't because of, for us, because of a pool fence, for you, because of, getting out there and talking about it. But especially, your faith being so important to you. I think, there's no doubt that there have been lives saved. And I think trusting in that's the case is helpful. Even though there's no way to know,
No, it is.
Around, but that somebody would have, right? That there's children alive right now, going to school, celebrating a birthday, whatever it is, because of the work you've done. And I think that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what would you like other parents who have little kids to know? What do you think that people should do who, have a pool or think about having a pool, or, have a baby, maybe who's about to start crawling and walking? What would you advise folks to do?
So I'm actually writing a paper on this right now. So obviously, the pool is an obvious thing to protect. And we've already talked about the responsibilities that come with that. But in addition to everything regarding pools and water safety, parents need to learn CPR. And that's the number one thing that I feel is probably more important than anything, because no matter what situation can occur, your kid could be playing sports and pass out, and you need these skills. And a lot of parents don't have these skills. So I really believe and advocate for people to learn CPR and learn it correctly. That's a very big conviction of mine, I guess you would say. Yeah.
I think that's great. And the number of people I know who say that their child is okay right now because either they or someone present knew CPR is astounding. Our friend Laura Metro, who you may have met at the NDPA conference,
I know that name.
Yeah, her son Clay fell in the pool at a pool party, and they pulled him out. He was not in great shape, and someone at the pool party did CPR based on what he'd seen on TV. He didn't know it. He had never taken a class, but he just kind of winged it. And that, kind of improv CPR was enough to save Clay's life. He ended up being helivaced to a hospital, and he spent several days in a coma, but eventually had a full recovery. Yeah. And the medical professionals said that immediate CPR probably had a big part in that. So
I've seen miracles when it comes to that. So, I feel, yes, it's so important.
So she has a organization called CPR Party, where she does kind of like a Tupperware party kind of deal. But instead of buying Tupperware, they teach non-certified CPR, where you're not getting a certification, but but you've learned a skill. You learned enough to be dangerous. Yeah. So
that's what's important.
No, I think it really is. And about the laws, so California probably has the best pool safety law in the country, where they give you the option of, I believe it's 7 different layers of protection, and then you get to pick 2 of them.
Oh, okay.
And what's nice about that is, as I'm sure you know, layers of protection has been kind of the rallying cry in water safety for the past 30 years. Everyone agrees that you want multiple layers of protection. And the California law actually puts that into practice. And right now in Florida, as we speak, there is a campaign going on to get past the Cason's Cause Act that was started by Britt Howard after her son Cason drowned. And she's trying to get this law passed to have kind of the same thing, where you have to have multiple layers of protection in place. Right now, you can pick one of a few different options, and some of them are kind of weak sauce. You can have just an alarm floating in the pool, and that's acceptable.
Yeah.
So she's campaigning literally as we speak to get this law into legislation. I think she has maybe 4 or 5 weeks to get it done. Wow. And there's a big push towards that. So we're doing everything we can to get the word out there about Cason's Cause and the Cason's Cause Act, and help her get that passed, because Florida needs it just like Texas. The number of drownings here is just way too high. So,
well, that'll be awesome to see what the outcome of that is, because these things take time, and that's what I really had to accept that when I went to the conference. Just it is overwhelming when you step into this world of advocacy. Like, things take time. It does not happen overnight. So to get the capital and to get this inauguration going, like, that's a huge accomplishment. And so prayerfully, after this session and over the next 2 years or however long it is, maybe more will come to the table that we can present in Texas. And
and as these other states adopt laws, you have models that you can follow, which is nice.
Yes, agree.
Thanks. So where can people find out about you? Where can people read your blog?
Yeah, so I created, my blog is called yournumbersnotup.com, and the backstory behind that name, we were on a family girls trip last summer, and my aunt was just joking, saying, well, her number's not up, and I was like, that's so true about myself. I was very depressed, and I was extremely suicidal after Gavin died, and so God really saved me from that and told me, my number's not up. I still have work to do. I still have a life to live. And so I created that blog not only to share my story, but as I continue to write over time and hopefully, make videos and share with others, it's just that there is life after loss. And in those initial dark days, you just feel like your life is over, but it's not. And your story can be used for good, no matter what it is. It's not only for drowning prevention, it's for any type of child loss. So, and just giving the hope for moms and dads to continue to move forward and find healthy ways of living after this happens. So yeah, yournumbersnotup.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And anywhere, I know you said you're taking a break from social media right now, but does Your Numbers Not Up have a Facebook page or Instagram?
Yes, yeah, it's on Facebook.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Anything else you want to let people know before we finish?
No, I'm just grateful to have this conversation and share my story. And I'm just excited for what the future holds with all of this. I'm very encouraged to see how many advocates there are out there, and hopefully one day we will see a world where this doesn't happen to our kids. So,
are you going to be at the NDPA conference this year?
Not this year. I can't make it to New Orleans, but I'll be in Fort Worth when it comes to Texas. So.
Nice. I missed last year, but I'm actually going to be in New Orleans this year. So
I wish I could go. I want to go. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. But I don't know.
Well, I'm going to be doing a live version of this podcast.
Good.
It'll also be broadcast on the internet, obviously. So
Good.
you can tune in and see a piece of the conference from home. Awesome. Well, Anna, thank you so much, and I'm really excited that we've gotten to quote unquote meet, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do. You're just really beginning this chapter in your life, and I can tell already that you're on a good path. So that makes me happy to see that, and I'm glad that, all things considered, you're doing so well, and it's reassuring. So
thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. It's important, and
thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, the more of us involved, the better. So,
all right.
Well, thanks everybody. You guys have a great day, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.